Hey Pruitt, hey Pruitt.
Hey Pruitt.
I'm having an existential crisis. Hey there gamers, I'm Pruitt, this is Jim Davis, and today on WebDM we're going to be telling the Bard's tale. Alright Jim, tell me about the Bard. Sing me a song, tell me a tale.
Weave a story about the Bard. So what I love about Bards, first off, if it took them 5 editions to get it right, that's fine with me.
Right.
Because Bard is one of the classes that I find I gravitate towards when I'm just sort of thinking about character concepts.
Yeah.
I love the way the class works, and I love that they finally feels like they got it right with this class. And I maybe have said this before, but sort of like Rogues, Bards, Paladins are like the 3, in my opinion, best designed classes in 5th edition. So I love Bards because they raise 2 questions for me as a DM and as just someone that loves thinking about Dungeons and Dragons. What is the relation of the class's story to its mechanics? Right, so every class tells a story.
Okay.
Right, there's both the mechanical package of a class and also sort of the flavor of it. Which, as much as I hate the term flavor, it's the word we got.
Yeah.
So that's the first question of it. What's the relationship between the fluff and the crunch?
The fluff and the crunch.
Fluff and the crunch. And then the second question is there an in-game relationship between the class and like a profession or an occupation? So the Bard suggests that they have a profession, that they are bards, that they travel, they tell stories. Certainly Bards in our own history and sort of Celtic history and culture play a very important role in government and keeping clan ties together. They're very important.
Well,
and
yeah,
so
passing down the histories.
Passing down the history, letting people know what the law is. There's a lot about it, particularly for cultures that have an oral tradition as opposed to a written tradition.
Yeah,
so
placating maybe some angry masses. Go out for the king and start
absolutely.
telling his praises.
Yeah, so I think that those are the questions that come to my mind when I think of the Bard, and I think it's worthwhile for DMs to think about that. And so, regarding that first question, what's the relationship between the class's story and its mechanics? Does every Bard have to be a musician?
Right.
And to me, it's like, no. You can sort of reskin things, you can reflavor things, you can readjust things so that the mechanics of the class fit a lot of different concepts.
Yeah.
And in that respect, the Bard is sort of a magician-musician as a base. But you can switch things up, and now you've got a great support caster class that has some interesting abilities to help buff or debuff different things you can do in the support role, and for the most part is just a great sort of 5th wheel to have, particularly if you've got all the other bases covered. You've got your frontline combatants, you've got your ranged support, you've got your offensive spells, your support spells can come from a Bard. And it's with 5th edition, you can have that without the baggage of needing a priest and having that sort of, you have a non-religious support class in the 5th edition Bard.
Right. But, I mean, the Bard can also do a decent job of filling one of those roles.
It can, in a pinch.
In
a pinch. And so like a Valor Bard, in a pinch, is going to be up there with the other frontline combatants, or maybe they're an archer Valor Bard that's lending their spellcasting support to the ranged attackers in the party. And so I find that the Bard can be, with the right build and with the right spell combinations, can fill a variety of different roles within the party. So there is that, I'm just a support caster, I'm here to buff the party, maybe debuff the enemies, keep them on their toes. That would be more of a lore Bard kind of character. Or if you go Valor, it's like, okay, I've got a frontline fighter or some kind of warrior in the party that allows me to dart in and out of combat using my magic to support them and hitting hard because I've got access to martial weapons. If you're using those feats, there's nothing preventing you from being, say, a strength charisma Bard and having a big weapon that you use to kind of buff yourself up, dart in, and attack. So it's just a versatile class that supports a lot of different concepts and a lot of different play styles, and that's what I like about the 5th edition Bard.
Okay, let's talk about the couple Bards that we've seen.
Yep.
First one in our, was it Rise of Tiamat or?
The Rise of Tiamat game, the Emma, who was playing Knut, the Trickery Cleric, at one point was like, I want to try out a different class, and she tried out Lore Bard for a few levels. Now, Emma didn't like it so much. She felt that the classes limited spell selection was too limiting for her. And just really didn't dig the support caster type of it. She liked a different type of support caster that Cleric gave her. But we did get to see, like, whenever her character's name was Diana Rigg, for those of you who get the reference. And so she, when she was on it, she was like casting Fairy Fire, Pass Without Trace, and lending her spell support to the party. In a way that sort of amplified everything else.
Yeah, it still helped out a lot.
It still helped out a lot. So she didn't have much fun with it, but mechanically, I thought it was pretty effective. And then I guess the other bard we've seen would be what, Yolo Swaggins?
Yeah.
Okay. So Yolo Swaggins is a character that I occasionally play, halfling Valor Bard. I play in a series of one-shots that we occasionally run over the year. Holiday-themed one-shots is what Yolo Swaggins is for.
Yeah.
And I mean, I really like the class. He's not a very high level character yet. I think like maybe 5th level.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have the entire package of Valor Bard abilities, but he's just, first of all, he's just really fun to play.
Yeah.
It's fun to have a limited selection of spells that you can fit a theme around. And so for him, it's like being a sarcastic kind of just commentator. Sort of a sarcastic character, doesn't necessarily, I don't know what you would call him. He doesn't necessarily go with the flow or fit in that well. So it's nice to have a character who has the abilities to kind of back up their tricksteriness, as it were.
Right. When it comes to the bard, you have said before in the cleric show that they can be a better healer than a cleric.
I think that there's a way for them to. It's a different kind of healing. So, and particularly if you're doing a small dip. So you're like dipping a little bit into life cleric, like 1 level into life cleric, using your magical secrets to pick up aura vitality and some other paladin-based healing spells. That's one way to be a healer, and that's sort of like, do you want to make sure that you are healed to full in between every fight?
Right.
Whereas they're not going to be, I don't think they're going to be as versatile and in combat healing that a life cleric's going to be. But if you're thinking about like, hey, I want cheap and easy healing, and I don't want to worry about it. I just want to like have one thing that I do that makes sure the party has healing, and then focus everything else on something. Then a spell like Aura of Vitality or a 1-level dip into life cleric can get your bard that.
Yeah.
And let them do, okay, I got that one thing covered. We got all the healing we need. Now I'm going to focus all of my other attention on the stuff that I really like.
So, you mentioned Magical Secrets, which is one of the cooler abilities that a bard gets in my mind.
Yeah.
But Lore Bard especially gets that extra.
It gets the extra. It gets extra and gets it early.
Right.
So Lore Bard's going to get it at 6 as opposed to 10, and then I guess 18. The final time they get Magical Secrets. So Lore Bards are getting up to 6 spells potentially from any class list. It's just, if you like magic and you like being able to cast a lot of spells, then most of the time you might gravitate towards Wizard. I got all the spells, I got the spell book, I got everything, but maybe you turn your attention towards Bard and you say like, okay, there are a handful of spells I really want to cast. I don't like Sorcerer, for whatever reason you don't really feel in it. Bard can be that class for you, and you can get some interesting spell combinations. Valor Bards can pick up the Paladin Smites, or if they're using ranged weapons, the Ranger spells that boost their archery. Lore Bards can pick up any number of offensive magic spells, Fireball, Lightning Bolt, Cloud Kill, to help boost their offensive firepower. Or they double down and go into Cleric and Druid for more control and debuff and support type spells. It's just the versatility that it gives you is amazing.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's why I love the Bard.
And taking that versatility to the next step, you would add on maybe some multi-classing. There's a couple classes that, because of, and it's just kind of the way that 5th edition's been set up, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of charisma casters.
There's a lot of charisma casters, and you can get, I think like Dexterity is the Uberstat for just raw power.
Yeah.
If you're looking for multi-classing versatility and just creating crazy combinations of classes, Charisma is really the stat that shines there. I mean, obviously for multi-classing, the reason why Bard makes such a good dipper is because their capstone ability at level 20 is garbage. And so it's like, take 19 levels of Bard, go for it. But that 20th level of Bard, if you want the proficiencies, let's say you want heavy armor proficiency as a Lore Bard because you don't want to worry about your AC. First level fighter, 19 Bard. I wouldn't do it with Valor because there's a little bit too much overlap there. Any of the levels of Cleric almost, particularly like Life Cleric's going to be fun for lore Bards. But you can also think of things like 3 levels into Sorcerer gets them meta magic. Synergy with Charisma, another full casting class, so they're not giving up their slots there. Now you've got maybe some extra first and second level spells that you wouldn't otherwise have from Bard, but you've got also access to meta magic, and then the rest of your levels obviously in Bard. Dip into Warlock. Everybody loves dip into Warlock, but Bards can really boost their offensive power with a 2-level dip into Warlock, synergize with their Charisma, get that Agonizing Blast.
Yeah.
And just like, I've got Eldritch Blast. That's what I do. And I'm also a Bard. So that's kind of how I would see you increase your versatility with that class.
Well, and also, as a Bard, you have more spells than a Sorcerer.
Yeah,
no?
And this was something that, like, looking at the class breakdown and sort of doing this class series, it's made me look and sort of compare the classes in ways that I don't normally do. And one thing that stood out to me, was that, like, the spells known for Bard, that column is greater, even factoring in Magical Secrets, is going to be greater than the spells known for Sorcerer. Now, I've got a lot to say about Sorcerer. When we get to our Sorcerer show, the limited number of spells known, I think, is a problem for Sorcerer. But for Bard, I find, like, in the Bards that I've played or built or seen other people play, that the limitation of spells known has not become a problem.
No.
That you can get everything that you want out of it. There's some great low-level debuffs. Dissonant Whispers stands out to me, but there's also like Fairy Fire and Tangle. And even as you go up, the number of spells they get, the versatility of it's really awesome. Yeah. Glad that they're a full caster class and not a half caster class.
Yeah, because that's kind of always the way Bards have been.
Yeah, and
well,
there's,
at least it's felt like that. I've never really been a big Bard person because they've always kind of sucked.
I would always try to play one in 3rd edition. There was always a part of me in 3rd edition who'd be like, man, I just love the idea of a Bard. It seems fun. I played a 4th edition Bard in one session. It was the only time I was a player in 4th edition. I was otherwise always a DM. And I guess I liked it there. I don't remember anything about it. And don't really remember much about 2nd edition Bards other than what I played in Baldur's Gate. Which is kind of, similar enough, but whatever. So 5th edition I would get disappointed in 3rd edition with the Bards. They just didn't hit the right notes for me.
Right.
No pun intended. And but for 5th edition, I find that it's great. It's got everything I want. It's in a great package, and I don't know. I love them. My idea for a Bard is like a classic half-elven entertainer lore Bard, and maybe they like grew up in an inn or some, like their college of lore came from the fact that they lived in the tap room of their mother's inn that saw adventurers come in and out every day, and other Bards, he studied at their feet as he plucked his lute or played his flute or whatever.
Right.
And just have that. He's been groomed his entire life to be an adventurer, and now that he's a young man, he's set out on his own for glory and honor and adventure. And I don't know, there's something classic about it that I really like. I really want to play that kind of like straight down the middle classic Bard. Hopefully I get a chance to.
Yeah, see, I've always wanted to try, and maybe with my recent direction that I've been taking characters I make, which are very atypical for me.
Yes.
This is the time to do my, like, A Knight's Tale, Geoffrey Chaucer.
Right.
Like, full social Bard. Like,
Yes.
he gets punched in the face a couple times.
Right.
But he doesn't ever fight.
He doesn't ever fight,
right?
yeah.
It's all social.
Yeah.
And making that work, or like a Tyrion Lannister.
Right.
I know that he's probably not seen as a Bard; he's more roguish, but
Yeah.
he does tell tales and know things.
He does tell stories and knows things, and if you could do worse than using Tyrion Lannister as your model for a Bard character, particularly one that is social. And I think that's perfectly legit, because there's no class in 5th edition that's going to suck at combat. It's not like It's not like 3rd edition where you could make a character that's just like garbage in combat and an actual detriment to the party.
Yeah.
But even if you played like completely against type, like a race class combo that does not fit well, and you don't have any combat spells, any direct damage spells, you can still be an amazing support character through healing, buffing, creating zones of difficult terrain or just combat hindrances. So you don't have to do just damage to be able to contribute to the party.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't a bard; it was a diviner. But I did that with Aristides. The only spell I had that created any kind of damage was the whatever it is, by cutting words.
Vicious Mockery.
Vicious Mockery,
which is a bard spell to begin with.
Which is a bard spell to begin
and
with.
So you have,
and that was it.
Right. And so I think that it's perfectly feasible to do that with the bard and play that kind of social character that in combat, hangs back in the back, casting spells a little bit every now and then, maybe using the help action, certainly using bardic inspiration. But also, if you run a campaign that only has 1 or 2 fights a session, then you're still going to have all this other time where you're contributing to the role-playing and the exploration pillars of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, you become even more integral in my mind, because if you're not having a lot of combat, what else are you going to have? You're going to be going around, you're going to be talking to people, gathering information, gathering resources, allies.
Gathering resources and allies, and particularly for the social type character in a game that treats your encounters as part of a larger world, and thereby possible to bypass encounters through role-playing, bypassing encounters through exploration.
Diplomancing your way out of things?
Diplomancing your way out of things. That it's then possible, like, okay, well, what does this bard do? Well, they gathered all this information on our enemy force. Here's the troop dispositions. Here's where they are in the dungeon. This is what our bard found out for us. Now the strike team goes in with the bard kind of hanging back in the back. I don't know. That's a one way to approach that situation. And DMs who have a player who wants to be social, doesn't really want to participate much in combat, shouldn't feel too bad about saying, like, okay, well, when we were out of combat, we did a ton of stuff with role-playing and exploration that your bard got to shine in. Now we're in combat, the fighters, the barbarians, those types evokers are going to shine in that. And that's sort of how you can provide that's sort of that spotlight balance that we've talked about in some shows. And I don't know, it's the bard. I'm just excited to play one.
Yeah, but still, like you said, though, they have enough support spells that you are still very important in combat. You don't have to deal damage, but if you're giving everyone else advantage, then any crit, that's because of you, buddy.
That's because of you, and being able to do that to take some of the pressure off. Let's say you have a cleric and a bard. You're taking some of the pressure off that cleric in terms of the support spells that they would normally cast, freeing up that cleric to use their more interesting spells or maybe their more offensive magic. Or maybe you've got a wizard and a bard in the party, a lore bard in particular.
Oh, man.
That the amount of magical power that you're throwing around. Maybe the lore bard coordinates with the wizard player and says, like, okay, what spells can I take with my magical secrets that would most benefit you? Or maybe not even the wizard. Like, you talk to the other members of the party and, like, hey, I can grab a haste. Now we've the 2 people in the party that can cast haste, or an extra fireball. Using something like that, and coordinating your spell selection with other members of the party. Of course, that goes with just about any class that has a limited number of spells. You want to talk to your party members, other players, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking of taking. Do you guys think this would be a really good benefit for us? Here's how I see it working. And really making character creation and leveling up not just a solo thing you do by yourself, but something that you do as a group, so that you can kind of talk, like, hey, got that level of bard and took this spell, hoping I can use it to buff you guys, or I don't know, those kinds of things. Yeah.
So Jim, what are some other examples of bards?
Bards in popular media. The one that stands out to me the most, it is Gabrielle from Xena.
Yes.
For those of
I
you
watched a lot of it. But
for those of you who remember Xena, first off, if you've never seen Xena, Warrior Princess, then go. I think it's on Netflix. Just go watch it right now. It's perfect D&D TV.
Yeah.
And
just cheesy enough.
It's just cheesy enough. It's just weird enough. It's got that patina of historicalness to it.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, this is Greece.
Yeah.
But it's a great show for that, and Gabrielle in it is a great model for sort of like a support character / bard who has a great arc to her throughout the seasons, and is sort of a good model for that. I would say, and I know I've recommended this before, that Kvoth from Name of the Wind is a great example of just like a classic. Here, I was a bard and had these adventures. Now I literally am an ex-adventurer who owns an inn. And the sort of interplay with that and sort of playing around with that archetype is really fun. Those are the 2 that kind of stand out for me. Any sort of like character who's charismatic, knows a little bit of magic, or I guess in the case of the 5th edition Bard, a lot of magic.
Yeah.
Or has a knack for something.
Yeah.
It makes a good fodder for Bard.
Yeah. I think we were talking about this, getting ready for this, how I could have gone with my current life cleric. I could have gone Bard with it.
Could have gone Bard with life, yeah.
To make Pierce.
Yes.
I mean, he does entertain.
He does entertain.
That's all he wants to really do.
Yeah.
So, but hey,
There you go.
it's fun either way. Time to escape into our realm of fantasy.
Man, I've been watching a shit ton of Voyager, and all I can think of is just like, man, the Dungeons and Dragons Holosuite programs would be fucking awesome.
That's all I think about. It's all I think about. That'd be amazing.
It'd be amazing, and you could have a variable.
As your DM.
I mean, Data could be your DM, but I mean, just like somebody. I mean, first off, I want to know about what the sociological implications of the Holosuite are. How many people on Earth just never leave their Holosuite? Just like I just have food pumped into me.
Well, but they to me though they address that in Next Generation with what's his name, Reg.
Barkley.
Reginald Barkley, because he has that. He's the guy that gets hung up in the Holosuite.
Here's my theory about Star Trek. In the shows and the movies, we're watching the best and brightest. They fucking join Starfleet. They are. Where are the losers in the Star Trek universe? They're just like, yeah, I'm just back on Earth. Like I didn't qualify for Starfleet. I'm not on a ship.
Yeah.
So it's like, here's my replicator and my holodeck, and I never have to leave this 10-foot cell.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it's a dystopian nightmare back on Earth.
They go to work for 6 hours a day because you reduce the shift so you can get more people to work.
Yeah. They don't even have money.
They
what
don't
are they
have
working
money.
for? They're working for holodeck rations.
Probably.
That's what they're working for. I bet it's a dystopian nightmare back on Earth. That's why they never show it to us.
Actually, it's like perfect because they eradicate poverty and everybody just works for the good of mankind.
It's my suspicious mind. It's like they sent all the best and brightest out amongst the stars, and they were like,
those are the scientists.
Those are the scientists and the
left is like
explorers.
artists.
They put artists on. I'd be an artist on a ship. I'd go and visit alien cultures and shit. But just like the people who are just like, yeah. What about the people that didn't graduate high school in the Star Trek universe?
They've got a badass PlayStation.
They do. They certainly do have a badass
it's a
PlayStation.
holodeck, and so
It's like, yeah.
They certainly do have. I'm excited about video games in my life.
they're probably at home creating new Holosuite programs. I mean, that's what
Creating
those people
you
do.
just do it. And then I like that in Voyager that's established that's like you don't go looking through someone's Holosuite history.
Yeah.
You just don't.
Yeah, it's
Why
bad
would
form.
you? Because the porno implications of the Holosuite, I think they touch on them a bit in Deep Space Nine.
In Deep Space Nine, they actually hint at. They're like, I'm gonna have to wash out that room.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Yeah,
Quark says that a couple times.
Says that.
And it's like, oh god,
After those
don't
Klingons,
make me think about
those
that.
Klingons got through with it with their bloodletting necrophiliac, whatever the fuck.
There's just blood and cum everywhere. It's just all over the walls.
all over the walls.
Because that's the thing is, it would just like be hanging in air until they end the program, and it would all just fall.
It'd be so gross.
Well, most of it would be fake, but
Yeah.
not the people.
But not the people who are in there. They turn the safety protocols off.
Yeah, I was just about to say because was it Worf had to ask them to turn the safety protocols
Worf,
off when
of
he
course.
started going in there with Dax.
Of course he would.
Because they started having crazy.
They started
Crazy
having crazy alien sex. She comes back all bruised and cut up. Rough night. Yep. Klingon lovemaking.
Yep.